So everyone, I have started recording today's session. And yeah, Leah and I are really excited to welcome you all today to share these experiential learning opportunities available to you all as UCSC students. So without further ado, let us go ahead and introduce ourselves. So my name is Ashley Bayman. I use she, her, aya pronouns, and I'm a global learning and UCDC program coordinator and advisor, meaning that I support students through the entire UCDC application process. I'll work with you throughout your pre-departure process. And if you are interested in exploring other study abroad or away opportunities, then I would work with you as well. Leah, I'll allow you to introduce yourself too.
Great. So hi, everyone. I'm Leah Tedonio, she, her, hers pronouns, and I am the undergraduate internship coordinator at Career Success, used to be known as the Career Center. And so I help to look after our campus's participation in the UC Sacramento internship program. And so as you know, we'll get into in the talk today, it's a little bit less of like an in-depth process to apply into that program, but like I'm certainly around to help give advice and help look at applications and things like that. And then also I'm just responsible for a lot of other undergraduate internship programs. So if you have questions on that end, I'm here for you.
So first I want to explore, why would a student even consider participating in a capital internship program? Well, obviously at UCSC, we strongly encourage students to kind of engage in these supplemental experiential learning opportunities. An internship is great for a variety of reasons. We listed some here. First, it gives you the opportunity to practice the job search before graduation. I can say our students who have some kind of professional experience on their resume before graduating may be a little bit more competitive, because not only do you have your degree, which you worked so hard for, but you also have, this professional knowledge of not only what the job search process is like, but the experience of undergoing a professional internship. And that allows you to test drive a career. Maybe you have an idea of what you want to do, but aren't exactly sure. So this allows you to really kind of test the waters to see what type of professional opportunities you'd like to pursue upon graduation. So now we're going to jump into the UCDC program. I'll feature that first and talk about, all of the parameters around UCDC. And then Leah will present about our UC Santa Sacramento program. Also, I just want to say, I'm not the most technologically savvy person in the world. So if I'm like going through slides, it's completely by accident. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. I don't want you to hang on to them throughout the presentation. Of course, there will be time at the end, but if something comes to mind, put it in the chat and we will answer it as soon as we can. So looking at the UCDC Washington program, first off, there are some parameters around program selection. So in order to be selected into the program, you have to have a 3.0 GPA or higher at the time of application. Now, some exceptions might be made for students who have a little bit under a 3.0. In that case, the faculty review committee would, decipher whether you're a strong enough candidate to be accepted into the program, and there would be kind of an expectation that by time you participate in the program, you do get your GPA up to 3.0. You must be a junior or senior by the time you participate in the program. So not at the time of application, but rather at the time that you actually leave to depart in the program, you have to have junior or senior standing. So at least 90 credits minimum. Also, as part of the application, we require you to submit a statement of purpose. This information is on the UCDC website under how to apply. There are different, criteria for completing your statement of purpose, which is like 1 to 2 pages. We require a letter of recommendation. Now, we prefer that to be from a faculty member, but it could also be from a TA or a former supervisor. We also require you to submit a resume and your unofficial UC transcript. So looking at eligibility, as I mentioned before, there's junior, senior standing with a 3.0 GPA. You also must be a current full-time student, so at least taking 12 units here at UCSC. Sometimes we can make exceptions for sophomores, just really depends on the faculty review committee and their kind of expectations of the student. I think if you're a sophomore, you'd be an even stronger candidate if you've at least completed some upper division courses. International students are welcome to apply for this program. An international student would have to obtain CPT. Transfer students can apply as well, up to your first quarter here at UCSC, as long as you've completed some UCSC coursework by time you participate in the program. We welcome DACA, AB 540, and undocumented students to apply to the program. And I think the thing I really want to stress here is that all majors are welcome to participate in the UCDC program. I think historically there's been this mindset that you must be a legal studies or a politics major to participate in the program, but that's not true at all. There are internships all around Washington, D.C. in a variety of different subjects and disciplines. So we really want to iterate that students from all majors are welcome to apply. And now looking at what are some of the things that the UCDC program offers? Well, I'm really excited to announce that this year the UCDC program is completely in person. Last year, it was a remote opportunity due to COVID, of course, but right now we have 12 students in Washington having an incredible time. Through the UCDC program, obviously you participate in a professional internship, and I'll go over some of those opportunities here soon. In the program, you receive academic credit, so at least 12 units with the opportunity of more, and I'll go over what the courses look like. There are opportunities to have professional mentorships and to network with a variety of different people. UCDC sponsors a lot of events, so they'll invite speakers or other professionals, former UCDC alumni who live in Washington, D.C. to interact with you all. They do tours of government buildings. You'll see here soon where the center is located. It's only 6 blocks from the White House and really close to the mall where all the famous landmarks and monuments are. So there's plenty of opportunity to get out and explore. There's also group trips to neighboring cities. They have Monday night forums, tons of different group activities. A group of ours right now just went canoeing in a river close to Washington, D.C. And then, of course, you get to live in the UC Washington Center. So I'll go over what some of those amenities look like here with you soon. But I think I could talk to you till I'm blue in the face about the UCDC program, but I wanted to provide you guys with the opportunity to learn about the program through the perspective of a student who participated. So I'm going to play this super short video about what a UC student's experiences was on the program.
When I was doing UCDC, I interned for the United States Supreme Court, and it was the best internship of my life. It was a really, really great experience, and I wouldn't have given up for anything. I was there during a big labor case, so there was huge protests outside the court, and that was something that was really interesting to see because I would walk past all the protests, walk away to work, and they would close off the front courtyard, and I could watch them from outside the window, and it was something that was really amazing to see because I'm from California. I've lived in California my entire life. I haven't been sort of near at that point, I had never been that close to the federal government, and it was kind of like watching history in the making. Even if that protest wasn't the biggest protest there ever, it was really.
She said it was really interesting to see, that kind of history in the making. And I think that's the wonderful thing about Washington, D.C., because it is such a political place. There are so many activities happening, almost every single day of the week. So by being immersed in Washington, the culture is very different from California culture. Language that they use can even be different. I've had students tell me they experienced culture shock by going to Washington, D.C. So there just are so many different cool opportunities outside of just the internship and taking courses, in your everyday outside life. There's so much to do. So now looking at where you can intern. So some of these organizations here are the various places that our students have interned in the past, but of course, this is not going to be an all-inclusive list. So as I mentioned, there are a wide variety of internships available in any field. So once you're actually accepted into the UCDC program, you'll gain access to UCDC's internship database. And this database lists all of the active listings of organizations who have hosted our students in the past. Some of these internships are paid, some have stipends, and then some are unpaid. Right now, students are either interning in person, they're doing a hybrid option, or some internships are still remote. So it really just depends on the organization that you're working with. And of course, once you're accepted into the program, you're actually responsible for securing the internship yourself with support from UCDC staff in Washington. So you'll have a staff member who's dedicated to working with you to identify, first off, like, what are you interested in doing? And then she would help you find organizations that kind of fall within that interest. So there is a lot of support in this internship search, but you are doing some of the kind of grunt work yourself. There's also courses that you take in the UCDC program. So the internship is considered a course and you receive academic credit for it. You get 7 units and you take that for pass, no pass. For the internship, you're required to work a minimum of 24 hours a week and a maximum of 32 hours a week. There's also a course seminar that you're required to do. Now, this would be listed just as a regular UCSC course in My UCSC, both the internship and course seminar. You get 5 units for the seminar course. It's 3 hours a week. And you can take this course for pass, no pass, or a letter grade. And there's also an optional elective for 4 to 6 units. So looking at some of the course seminar courses, because this is in Washington, obviously a lot of the course seminars kind of fall around, like Congress, international development, policy, Washington media, the Supreme Court, but there's always a general research course that really allows you to kind of dive deeper into an issue you're interested in your field, and pursue that research opportunity throughout your time in Washington. And so if you're not like a politics or legal studies major, a lot of our students engage in that general research course. And then the electives, they really vary by quarter. There's usually like 2 additional electives offered. We typically encourage students to just do the internship and the course seminar rather than taking the additional electives, just to allow yourself to really immerse in the experience in Washington, D.C. without, being overloaded with a bunch of credits. But if you need the extra credits, you can take an elective course, and you can use either of the courses, the seminar or any elective course, potentially to meet major, minor requirements. You would just need to talk to your department advisor about the course you're taking to see if that could meet a requirement. And then looking at a little bit about life in DC, I think this is really the exciting part of the program because, life in DC is going to be much different than life here in California. They have seasons. So if you go in the wintertime, you'll be, immersed in all the snow. If you go in fall, you'll be able to see all the changing leaves and the changing weather. Spring is when here you can see a photo of our students at the Cherry Blossom Festival to see everything bloom. There's always like festival and events. Some of the most famous museums in the United States are located in Washington, like the Smithsonian. There are so many national monuments. UCDC is really close to, New York City and other places on the East Coast. So there's like a wide variety of diverse cuisine, local attractions, and then again, just so much to do. So right here, this is where UCDC or the UC Washington Center is located. So as I mentioned, it's only 6 blocks from the White House. You can see that here. If we walk down a little bit, here's the National Mall. There are grocery stores really close by, a Safeway and a Trader Joe's. There's metros really close by. So you're really kind of in the heart of DC to be able to explore and engage with DC's culture. And now looking at life at the UCDC Washington Center. So it's an 11-story building. In the Washington Center is where you live. So you would share a bedroom with another student, and you guys have kitchen, bathroom to yourself. In the Washington Center, there's like a convenience store and there's a fitness center, and there are all different types of like social lounges and computer labs and libraries and just a whole host of things. Everything is fully furnished, so you don't have to worry about like bringing any furniture or anything. There's 24-hour security, have laundry on site. There's just a lot there. But a lot of our students, kind of their main joy of participating in the program is just getting to experience it with other UC students. So you'll not only be there with other students from Santa Cruz, you'll also be there with students from UC Berkeley, UC Davis, you name it. It's a system-wide program open to all students. And before you go on the program, you'd actually take a survey so for them to like pair you well with a roommate based on your interests and lifestyles. But some of those friendships that you make are some of the most impactful, experiences at the Washington Center. And so now looking at like the total cost of participation, it's really comparable to, the cost to attend UCSC. Again, you're taking UCSC credits, you pay UCSC tuition. The only difference is the housing costs. So you'll pay for the price of housing at the Washington Center. And then in the budget, we also include things like airfare, of course, meals and food, and your travel to and from Washington, D.C. So it's a very inclusive budget. I think this year it's about $13,600, which again is really on par with, the cost of living here at Santa Cruz. And now looking at just how to apply to the program. So you would create an account in the UCDC's SIS system. All of this information is found on our website. Again, just to reiterate, as part of the application process, we require you to submit an unofficial transcript, which you get from my UCSC, a resume, a statement of purpose, and one letter of recommendation. Applications will be open for fall and winter, starting winter quarter. But right now we're actually recruiting for spring. So if you are interested in the program and you have open availability this spring to do something different, you can absolutely apply. The applications for spring are open and our deadline for spring is November 26th. We're also offering many information sessions up until that spring deadline. So I strongly encourage you to consider the program for spring if you have availability in your schedule. If you ever want to meet with me to talk more about the program, the application process, you name it, you're more than welcome to book an appointment with me in the Global Learning portal. You can access this by just going to globallearning.ucsc.edu. At the very top of that webpage is the Global Learning portal link, where you would go to, you create a profile, and then you can schedule an advising appointment with me. You're also welcome to come to drop-in advising on Wednesdays and Thursdays. Those are in person. I should also mention that appointments, you can make an in-person appointment or a virtual appointment with me. Or if you have general questions, please feel free to just email me at globallearning@ucsc.edu. Now I think we'll transition to talk a little bit about the UC Center Sacramento program.
Okay, so are you okay moving the slides for me, Ashley, while I talk? So yeah, we're going to pivot to UC Sacramento or UC Center Sacramento. There's going to be like some very obvious parallels with the program you just heard about, and then some key differences as well. So okay, so program selection, this is very similar. So there will be like a resume that you put together. They're going to look at unofficial transcripts and then a personal essay that's relatively short, like 350 words is not a long personal essay. So those are like the three key metrics that are evaluated to get into the program. And so UC Center Sacramento, which I don't know why I always stumble saying it. It just like doesn't roll off my tongue enough. So this is an experiential internship as well. So you get placed at an internship site that's in Sacramento, either with state government. It could be like in the governor's office or, with an elected official, or it could be with a nonprofit. It's an opportunity for professional networking within the state. The courses here are taught by UC Davis, which makes a lot of sense because functionally UC Davis is very close. There's also a lecture series that students take part in where guest speakers are brought in who are in like different high levels of state government. You have an opportunity to win in person, live and explore in Sacramento. And I think, you know, what this might be a good opportunity for are for folks who want to do an experiential opportunity, but they want to be in the state. And so, you know, it's new experiences, but you're in California. And so just a quick overview, again, there's coursework as well. So you do your internship, and then there's also unit courses that you can take. And while they have like a real focus on political science, you know, again, this is going to be an internship that, oh, you're welcome and see you, that can be for all majors as well. And just like a quick overview here, as you can see, like really when we saw UCDC, you saw like a lot of, you know, federal institutions where you could internship, or like national nonprofits. Here again, we're going to see like that like delineation between kind of like federal and state government, where this is going to be a lot of like state impacting organizations. And so again, I think that another alignment is that, you know, what they're trying to do is when you're admitted into the program, match your interests and tailor them to internship opportunities. And so you work with an advisor who's in-house with UCCS, and they help place you somewhere that is aligned with like your goals and kind of what you're hoping to do, either after you leave the institution or something you might want to be like trying out. And if you're really just like not sure, they can kind of help like tailor the experience to suit. And so again, when we're looking at those like participation costs, it's probably more similar in terms of, you know, what you're paying right now for being at UCSC. The biggest difference that I would say between UCDC and UCCS is that most students elect to find their own housing. And so there is some housing offered, but the vast majority are finding their own housing in Sacramento. And again, like there's like travel costs in terms of like if you're gonna like drive or train there, and like, you know, kind of like what you want to pay for like being out in town or whatever. But like, you know, it's pretty comparable to, you know, maybe a little cheaper than Santa Cruz being in Sacramento, but you know, you're pretty aware of like the California cost of things. And then just the upcoming deadlines that I'd like point you all to is that for spring, the deadline's right around the corner at November 4th. And then for summer, the deadline's creeping up on November 2nd. And so we do have a page on career success where we kind of get into the UC Center Sacramento information. So feel free to swing by there. And just remember, like the required documents to apply are your unofficial transcript, a resume, and a personal essay. And a 3.0 is recommended, but there's definitely wiggle room within that as well. It's not a requirement. And then, yeah, I invite anyone who's got questions to, you can book an appointment on Handshake with me. Handshake is where we're trying to direct all students who come through career success. It's where you can meet with undergraduate internship coordinators like myself. You can also talk to career engagement specialists or peer mentors on like future job searches or resumes, cover letters, that sort of thing. We do have an opt-in peer advising time specifically for UC Center Sacramento with a student ambassador who was a former intern there. And so her Zoom link is on our career center or career success page under UCCS. And that's Monday from 4 to 5. And you can always reach out to me directly on email.
So now I think we can open up the floor to any students who are remaining that have questions about either of these opportunities. We will send the recording to you all, as well as additional information about the programs, just so you have some of the links and things that we're talking about now on hand. But Leah and I are here to answer any questions that you might have. Okay, let's see. Have former UCDC or UCCS interns returned back to employers to work full time? So I cannot necessarily say that they returned back to the same employers. I think if you were a senior in your last quarter, there'd be more opportunity to do that. But obviously, if you were interning, when you're still pursuing your academic studies, then you have to return to UCSC. But we do have many students after interning in Washington who return to live in Washington, whether it's working with the organization they worked for previously or with another organization. But I say that opportunity or that door is more open for those students who are participating, let's say, the last term of their senior year. And then can you choose to live off-site for the Washington program? No, you cannot. You are required to live at the UC Washington Center. I think sometimes there have been exceptions for those who are bringing dependents with them, if they wanted to find like, a sublease or something within Washington. But the experience is really for students to kind of live and learn within the UC Washington Center. So that's not as open of an option. Another question was, are these opportunities available during the summer? So for UCDC, it is not. It is an academic year program, meaning you can only participate during either fall quarter, winter quarter, or spring quarter. But Leah, I'll allow you to speak about UCCS summer.
It's an option. So yeah, basically, yeah, if you would like to, I guess, kind of like keep your school year going, you're more than welcome to do a summer session at Sacramento. And I will say, I'm new to my role, so I don't know as many students who've been through these programs and where they've been placed, but the students who I have connected with primarily at this point have been, they're looking to have their next steps be going to law school. And what I will say is that what I saw being in Sacramento and their positions have given the few that I know who I've been talking to have been some direction in where they want to be pursuing. So for example, one of our last students did an internship looking at, prison reform in California. And now they're looking to go to law school and have that be a particular area of interest.
We also had a question about the application process itself and how many we recommend applying to and likelihood of acceptance. So actually for UCDC, there is a required UCDC Prep 100 course that you can enroll in the quarter prior to your participation in the program. You're required to do the course, but you can either do it for 1 credit or for no credit. And during that preparation course, they will go through the entire internship search process with you. There will be, if you do it for credit, there will be homework assignments. But we recommend you apply to at least 10 internships. Again, the organizations in Washington are very familiar with UCDC and our program. So they kind of give some type, priority acceptance to students within our program. But it just depends the organization that you're working with. Another question, could you give some examples of government internship students have had before? So I put a link in the chat for the UCDC internship page. And let's see, there is a document where past UCSC students have interned on Capitol Hill and other federal agencies. So I just put that link in the chat for you to be able to review yourself. And again, if there's particular, Congress people that you want to work with, or, representatives in the House, UCDC staff would help you, understand the process to apply for an internship with specific people. I mean, AOC is a really popular person that students want to intern with, and we have had students intern with her. We've had students intern with Cory Booker, the current vice president, a variety of different representatives and Congress people. So it just depends on your interest, really. I think there's a question for you, Leah, if Sacramento program is more tailored for politics majors.
So no, it is not. I think that it's just that in the past, it's been really targeted on this campus to politics and legal studies majors. But no, it's wide ranging because I guess when you think about it, it's like meant to be a reflective experience of like what's happening in Sacramento, and that's crossing into like, health, all sorts of issues. And so I think that like, governance, also, many things. So I think that it's really open to spaces beyond folks who are in politics or legal studies.
And then there was a question for me about a meal plan as part of UCDC. There's not a meal plan per se, but we make a really inclusive budget that financial aid would package you for meals and food costs. Of course, there's a kitchen in your apartment, so you're welcome to make whatever kind of meals that you want in order to save money, but there's tons of dining options, as well as a convenience store within the Washington Center for just a quick snack. Another question we have is, as a senior applying for a graduate level position, employers can take very long to reply. So if the situation arises that they do not receive an acceptance for a UCDC internship, have there been situations like that before? I'd say the times in which we experience kind of a delay in replying has been during COVID. I think a lot of organizations were navigating all of the different issues that COVID brought about. But in general, because when you apply for an internship as a UCDC student, you tell them what your start and end date are. Those obviously align with our quarter dates. So they know that by this time you would need to start the internship, and by a certain time you would need to finish the internship. So they are very good in, responding to students who have more harder deadlines. And then for UCDC, there are a variety of fellowships for the program. One second, for this winter program, students had access to 2 fellowships that could apply to, each worth $1,000. And let me put that in the chat. So those are some of the fellowships that students could apply to for winter. They are typically the same for fall and spring. And I'd also like to say there are a lot of campus scholarships available to students participating in these, experiential internship programs. So let me put a link in the chat for our scholarships page on our global learning website. Some of them are like study abroad specific, but not all. So that's the link right there. If you scroll down to the bottom of the page where it says UCSC campus scholarships, there are a variety of different scholarships available for students at UCSC, doing field study, internships, you name it. So I also highly recommend you explore looking at scholarships offered at UCSC. And of course, I'm here to work with you to identify those scholarship opportunities as well. And again, correct me if I'm wrong, Leah, for both of these programs, your financial aid goes completely with you, and your financial aid adjusts to meet the program cost. So if UCDC is a little bit more expensive, then you would have a little bit more aid offered to you to meet the cost of the programs. Typically, it works out so that, if 80% of all of your fees are covered at UCSC, then 80% of all of your fees would be covered at UCDC. We have a financial aid advisor who, specializes on special programs like UCDC, who would work with you to identify, any gaps in funding and opportunities to fill those gaps. These are some really, really great questions. Any other questions you guys can think of?
And yeah, I dropped in some information too about UC Center Sacramento. And I also know that they offer some scholarships. They're not like high paid like scholarships, but probably like, around $1,000 to $1,500. And they said that they often don't see students applying for them as well. So if you are interested in looking at UC Center Sacramento, I encourage you to look at their scholarships as well and go for them.
Yeah, I would say the same for UCDC, the 2 fellowships that I put in the chat. I didn't have any students apply for them. And like some of these are like specifically for UCSC students, like 2 $1,000 guaranteed fellowships as long as the student applies. So I had to do some last minute, like, hey guys, this is free money, please apply or it'll go to another campus. So the money exists as long as you're willing to kind of put in a little time and effort to complete the applications. Any other questions for us?
Yeah, actually, I have a question.
Sure.
You said transfer students have to complete a quarter. What if like we're in the middle of our first quarter and then we want to apply? Can we do that like for spring?
Absolutely, yeah.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, I actually have another transfer student. It's their first quarter at UCSC applying to the program. The only thing is the faculty review committee, they like to see that you've like completed some upper div coursework. And if you've never did upper div, you know, obviously at community college or your previous institution, then they would take that into consideration. But it's really a student, you know, by student case, just depending on, you know, what your specific and unique, you know, situation and circumstances are. But you definitely could apply and work with me through the application process. Any other questions for us? Do accepted students depart from California for the program altogether, or is there a date that we have to reach there by individually? So they require that you all come individually to Washington, D.C. There will be a date upon which you should apply. They give out really specific like directions, like from the airport, what are the different like transportation opportunities that exist, whether it's the metro or a shuttle, etc. But I think they do this because sometimes students want to get there like a week before and like stay at a hostel or Airbnb just to kind of scope out. Some students go to New York City before going to Washington. But we don't require students to all fly together because, you know, obviously students are located all throughout California. So we wouldn't want students in Los Angeles to have to fly from Sacramento or from San Francisco and vice versa. So you do arrive there individually by a specified date and time.
Yes, so coursework, I see that are we required to take the political science courses in the previous slide? You're required to take a mix of them. So talking with the advisor at UC Santa Cruz, you don't need to take all of them, but you do need to take some of the courses.
And then there was another question about should you apply again if you know you weren't accepted for a quarter? I say yes. For UCDC, at least, it's a limited capacity program, meaning there's only so many spots on the program. We have 22 spots for UCSC students each quarter. So if those spots fill, then it's not necessarily that you weren't accepted based on merit. It just might be there's no spots left in the program. But the faculty review committee would never look at, oh, they applied before and they weren't strong enough, they shouldn't apply again. I would encourage you to apply as many times as possible.
Yeah, and I will say that for whatever reason, UC Sacramento just doesn't, we don't ever fill quota. So I think that the only, like the grounds for not being accepted would be, yeah, if there was like a determination that maybe getting some more of like the upper divs under your belt and just like showing that like, you know, there weren't any like grave academic concerns. I think that it's not that it's not competitive. I just think that we also aren't looking to place folks into housing as well and things like that. So it's just like a little bit more flexibility in terms of like what the program can accommodate.
And then in terms of like the timeline after you submit your application, so typically your application will be reviewed anywhere from, I'd say 2 to 3 weeks after the deadline. So there's some students who submit their applications early, and that's great. But then there's a longer waiting period for when your application will be reviewed. But it's typically within 2 to 3 weeks after the official deadline for the program. Any other questions? These are great. I'm so happy that you guys are so engaged.
Quick question. If we wanted to do UCDC for fall quarter of 2022, when would you suggest we like meet with you to start planning that?
I would say at the beginning of winter quarter, so January. Last year, the application for fall 2022 and winter 2023, we recruit for both quarters at the same time. The application opened at the end of January, the last cycle. So I think if you met with me as soon as kind of winter quarter began, then you could start collecting all of your like required application materials, like looking for that letter of recommendation, writing that statement of purpose. So when the application opens at the end of January, you could just like submit it and be done.
Awesome. Thank you.
You're very welcome. And then I'll also put in the chat, if you want to meet, like have an advising appointment with me, all you have to do is go to the link that I just put in the chat and create a profile. And once you create a profile, at the very top of the page, it's like schedule an appointment, and then you can choose Ashley, and then we can meet to kind of talk about what maybe some of your unique circumstances might be. And then also, just in case you guys haven't seen this before, on our website, that's the, oh, nope, that's not the right one. That's just a list of our programs. But if you wanted to look at the Washington D.C. program, I just put the correct link in, and there's a lot of information about like how to apply, costs, courses, internships, living in DC, et cetera, et cetera. And is it rolling admissions for UCDC? So, yeah, so students have to apply by the deadline. Of course, students submit their application before. Once that deadline has passed, all students will be reviewed at once. So it's not like kind of review based on first come, first serve. It's an inclusive review process. So not necessarily like rolling selection.
And I was just making a plug to join Handshake. You can schedule appointments with me there to talk about this internship or other internships on campus or off. But also my plug for Handshake is really that we really want to see all students having a Handshake account. We curate job and internships for you. It's something that you can continue to use 2 years after you graduate and leave the institution, plus take part in career fairs, info sessions, interviews, things like that. So really, it's a resource we really do encourage everyone to sign up for.
Any last minute questions? This has been great, you guys. Okay, if you don't, we will be sending a email with this recording and additional information as well as slides to these presentations. You know how to meet with us now if you ever want to meet with Leah and I to talk about these different opportunities. But we thank you all so much for being here today. And we look forward to hopefully engaging with you and supporting you, as you endeavor upon these unique opportunities that you have as UCSC students. So thank you all so much for joining today.
Thank you.